Sorry about that. I wanted to get some paperwork out of the way so that we can make sure that this is recorded and posted on YouTube. So, hi, my name is Alkani, and I am the moderator for the panel on writing groups. So essentially today what we're going to be talking about are what are writing groups, what are some of the core bits of information you might think about for a writing group, and how it is that writing groups can potentially help you as writers improve your writing and also give you a sense of community. So starting with the person nearest to me, going all the way down the line, we have Jake Drakis, who is a writer. We have Mog Moogle, who is a writer. We have Significant Otter, who is a writer. And we have TJ Mind, who is a writer. They are all participants in writing groups. And I will actually let them, in order, talk a little bit about themselves as well. So, starting with JD, we'll just go down the line.
I have to go first?
Yes.
Of course. Why do you make the quiet one go first?
Because you're sitting to my immediate left.
How about this? We can make you go last. Still have the mic right in front of you, just closer.
Please start us off, TJ.
As Serval said, I'm TJ Mind. I am an alumni of RAR2, which we outweigh y'all. Ha 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 ha, we win. At least over here. The audience doesn't count. But yes, I am a writer. I have been published many, many times. I have the most recent publications in the den, at least, are Fang, there we go. Volume 9, which has a religious story I'm super proud of, and the Leo Literary Award-winning story, The Promise, in Heat 15. Remember the number right. Most recent one's in the den. I'm a part of, writing groups, the actual subject we're here. Yes. I'm a part of 3-ish writing groups. I have a local one to me in the Cincinnati area. I'm a part of one in, actually at least 2 others online. One which is my RAR group, and one that is with 2 other people here on the table.
All right. I'm Significant Otter. I'm published in the most recent Fang and a few other places like Thirst and How Pubs Arcana, For Planets, Dogs of War, and I am also part of several writing groups. I graduated RAR, the Regional Anthropomorphic Writing Retreat, in the same class as TJ. I am also a participant in the DMV area, DC Metro Critique Group, where I used to live and be able to attend well before I moved up to Philadelphia. Now I have to remote in, which is sad. But I get to see everyone here, which is fantastic. And I'm also as well part of the online critique group from our RAR class.
Hi, I'm Mog. I am also in the Cincinnati Fiction Writers group with TJ. I'm a graduate of RAR year 3, and we do our writing group on the internet with that. And then there's 2 other guys here at the table that we just kind of share stories and particularly harsh critiques. Don't do that, by the way, unless you really know the people. But yeah, that's my experience. I published. You can also find me in Fang 9 this year with a story that I am particularly proud of, and it's better than TJ's. I don't care what he says. I'll fight him.
Just because you have the anchor, that means nothing. Actually means everything. But
No,
get in.
in all seriousness, Fang 9's great. Go pick it up. They don't have many left, so if you want it, go get it.
Oh shit, I gotta pick it up.
Well, if all of us go pick it up, they will be out.
That was Claw last year.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Wow, that was Claw last year.
Yep. And yeah, that's me. How about you? Who are you, JD?
I'm JD, and all of a sudden I'm upset. I'm in the DC area writing group with Significant Otter. I'm a graduate of the most recent class of the Regional Anthropomorphic Writing Retreat, and also in a writing group with TJ and Mog online, trading stories back and forth. My most recent publications are Fang 9 and Last Year's Ski.
I do think it's kind of funny that me and Mog are going to argue about which RAR class is the best, but JD says that we're just the quiet ones.
So, and as I said before, I am Alkani. I am actually the panel moderator. I am the principal facilitator for the Regional Anthropomorphic Writers Retreat, which is a 4 to 5 day intensive short story furry writing workshop that is residential. So that means that you get all the writers, you put them all in one place, and they all hang out and live with each other for 4 or 5 days, working on their craft. Kyle Gold and Ryan Campbell are the current slated instructors for RAR 5. So it's hard to believe it's been 5 years already, but it has been. So we encourage you to apply if you are interested in information. I do have pamphlets with me. I also have some other promotional items such as pens and stickers, a very limited quantity of thin magnets. I will probably be holding on to the magnets, but I will probably be willing to give anyone who is interested in some of the other promo stuff. So with that being said, let us move on to the idea of a writing group. So first question to the panelists is, what in your definition is a writing group? Or do you just want me to define that? And that's open to any panelist to answer.
Okay, so a writing group is a group of people that get together and write stories, then share them amongst themselves and exchange critique on those stories and share advice. If there's someone stuck, you can always go to your group. It's a big family of a big dysfunctional family of authors that just help each other.
Yep, no, that works.
Yeah. All right. So what do all of you on the panel feel is the difference between a writing group and a just general group of beta readers, for example? Do you feel that there's any real difference between those two? Because obviously you can get beta readers, but what is there something special that happens by having a writing group?
I think the difference is that a writing group gives you the opportunity to have critiquers on a story discuss the critiques that they had on that story, separate from the one-on-one interaction that they have with the author. They can see what other critiquers thought about these aspects of the story, and they can refine their own critique or make their suggestions with that in mind, and that's actually a surprisingly helpful thing. It's also great being able to field a question to an audience and get 4 people going one way and one person saying, well, I actually liked it, or having 3 and 2 splits, or really just polling and seeing how people respond and interact with themselves about the story. I've had several points where I've asked the DC writing group, I know this needs to change, and I'm thinking about how I could do this, and this is what my thought leads me to do. What do you think about this in terms of the story? And I've gotten several different answers throughout the group, and I get to immediately see the perspectives of multiple people, and I've also had the discussions between other people on my story contribute in a greater way than they would have individually coming to me in this one-on-one beta read.
So I want to both agree yet disagree. And I think that's because of the nature of my local writing group. I think that whenever I've had an online group, it's been a lot more compact, a lot more tight-knit. To me, that is more of a beta trade and critiquing group. With my local group, when we do write meets, it's open to the public, so random people can come in, like me and Mog, and share random things like furry stories with people doing things that they should only be doing in After Dark panels, and get actual feedback on that. And it's not just, yes, I can do that, but then so can you, and then you, and then you, and we can all be coming in and bringing in different stories. And it could be genres that I'm not used to hearing. But to be completely honest, I've gone to these writing groups and heard from people of so many different skill levels, so many different places in their writing careers. I've learned so much just by being there. Hearing the same thing, don't use as many adverbs, don't use as many action tags or dialogue tags, or mix them up more, or something along those lines. I've heard those sorts of feedbacks and have been able to apply them to my own work in ways that I don't think I would have gotten in any of the other groups I'm in, because they are on a one-on-one level.
Wholeheartedly agree with that. If you can get in one of these writing groups in a larger city, it doesn't matter what the writing group really is. We can go to this mainstream writing group, share our furry literature, and they accepted us. So, but
For the most part.
for the most part. But yes, the range of skill levels there is truly astonishing. We have agented authors in this group, and we have weekend hobbyists, and they all share their critiques. So,
For me, the big difference is consistency, because you have that group you can always go to, and they can look at things you've done before and tell you that you keep doing the same thing over and over again. Or, oh, you've moved on to something new. But they can see the patterns in your writing because they're consistently looking at your work, and I think that's the big difference.
So how did each of you find your specific writing group?
Somebody walked up to me and was like, "Hey, you want to be in a write group?"
I would argue that point. Someone actually said, "Hey, I want to work on an anthology, and this is an anthology idea. Let's start this chat." And by the way, I have a story you want to read. You want to read it for me? Can you guys give me like a stupid fast turnaround time?
and then that turned into a podcast.
Yup.
I'm still trying to figure that one out.
Though at the same time, our local, I say our being me and Moggs, the local group started actually at For Reality. I happened to be sitting behind a table with some friends of mine and talking to the people selling books beside me. And as we're talking, they mentioned that they have a local write group, and then 6 months later, I was finally actually able to show up to one and started hanging out. And second meeting, I shared works and didn't get booed out of there for showing a bobcat playing. A bobcat bowling. Didn't get thrown out for that, so I'm like, oh, cool.
Oh, that story.
Yeah, that story.
Yeah.
Then I turned and said, hey, Mug, want to come do this? No, you should do this thing with me. I was like, okay. And started going to that regularly. And RAR just kind of happened because RAR.
Yep. Yeah. One thing that definitely happens is when you've got a group of people who consistently work with each other or talk with each other about stories and writing, they'll start sharing with each other, and writing groups just sort of naturally form out of that. Alternatively, you can have someone like Skunk Bomb, who is really driven, and he just goes out and he finds all the writers in the DC area, takes the initiative, sets up times, arranges meetings, and then starts up a super successful writing group that's been fantastic and running ever since.
I'll add on to that sometimes if you really want a writing group, that's what you have to do. You have to take the initiative, because some people are just really timid about getting out and getting things rolling. So
Treat it like a furry.
right. If you're talking in the furry sphere, treat it like a furry. Get together, be furries, be furry authors, because that's the best.
The best and greatest.
No.
Thanks for adding a drink.
No.
Sorry, I couldn't resist.
Yes, you could have.
But I didn't, so I couldn't. All right, so these questions are for each of the panelists, and these are just more about how you feel writing groups have helped you or build some sort of skill. So the first question is, how do you feel, each of you individually feel that writing groups have helped your writing? Well, first off, I guess, have they helped your writing, and how do you feel that they've helped your writing?
Do you want to go first, JD?
Yeah, I can go first because it's pretty simple for me. Just simple numbers. Of 9 stories I've submitted to the write group, I think it is. All but 2 have been accepted. So, yeah, it's
Impressed.
just straight up measurable success there. I definitely think that on not measurable things, I find I've stopped doing certain things after they've yelled at me enough for them. And I think that's it for me for the second. If it comes back, I'll cut in.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. Just about everything I've put in front of the Cincinnati Fiction. Well, yeah, everything but the first chapter of my novel has been published. And
Because you haven't finished
the novel's not finished, so that's why it's not published. Because I know as soon as it's done, I'm gonna first literary agent I talk to is gonna be like, yep, we're signing a contract. Here's the movie deal. We'll get this rolling. But as far as the little things, I've come to fear highlighters,
Oh God, yes.
and it's really helped me actually hone my technique, because the level of skill of my RAR class, these guys beside me, and the Cincinnati fiction writers, they give you such good advice, and they can help you with your technique so well, and just pitch things, because it's like honing an edge. It really is. Over time, it's like getting your edge honed down and becoming that precision instrument.
Yeah. I don't honestly have too much to add, because really, when I'm talking about how writing groups have helped me in particular, I'm just going into the specific elements of writing that I've had enhanced through my writing groups, and which ones have that I've been weak with have improved over time, and it's the same process. You get so much feedback, and you get so much discussion about it, and you really get to see the numbers game. You don't have like the one-on-one beta feedback where each time you just get the beta back and you're like, this makes sense, but I think I like it the way it is. This makes sense, I think I like it the way it is. And you can start to see a pattern through multiple beta reads, but it's still always individual. And when you have that writing group of 5 people, or like 6 to 10 to however many people, you get to see the numbers on that, and that really helps me drive home what isn't working in my writing for people.
As everyone else has said, for me, they're totally incredibly helpful on my local level with my small groups of my RAR class and the 2 poor people over here that we rubbed into this, or that have been roped into this collectively, some form or fashion. It's one of those I can get a quick turnaround and have that extra pair of eyes just before the deadline because they don't absolutely hate me yet. But then it also gives me the opportunity in the larger groups to not just get general feedback on story points, ignoring the ears and the tails, and sometimes I still have to argue, no, it's like Robin Hood, and just ignore it and just keep going. But even still, you learn and grow through osmosis, nevertheless. It's not my story you're telling me about, but I get to hear these benefits about these things that other people are doing, not necessarily wrong, but things that they could do better. And you're hearing these opportunities they have, and you can see these opportunities in your writing. It may not be, as I said before, for me it was adverbs. It's action tags more often than dialogue tags and things like that. It's easier for me to notice them because I'm hearing them poke others about it.
So it also sounds like all of you would also agree that being in a writing group as opposed to doing betas, because you're required to analyze other people's work as well as part of this. It also sounds like there have been improvements to your editing skills as well, your self-editing skills. So that's another added benefit of being in a writing group, I would think. And how do you all feel about productivity? Like, do you feel like you're more productive writers? And what's improved based on that? Is it you have more motivation? Is it because you have more of a sense of community? What elements kind of if they've helped your productivity, how has it helped your productivity?
Yeah, I can't speak to that. My productivity last year is just tanked, so unfortunately. But that's just, that's real life related, that's not writing related. Generally being around other writers, you have that synergy, and up until last year got really hectic. I would say that was true of the writing groups.
I would say it depends on the group personally and what the group is doing. The small group of 3, it's more a resource that's there if you need it. But my bigger RAR group that will get together and say, hey, we haven't done a critique in a while. Let's go ahead and have something to share with each other by X date. That means by that point I have to have something, either a trunk story I've polished up or something they've already seen that I've polished up or something brand new I've written for my group. And that...
Have we set a date?
No, we haven't set one. People
I
have
was like, oh shit.
Yes, it's tomorrow and you don't have anything.
No.
It's worse than the first day in your underwear.
And I'm also, I was about to say, I'm also not wearing any clothes and presenting to the class.
And then going even larger still with the Cincinnati fiction writers, to me that is a lot more lax. It is presenting when I choose to, but it's not the requirement. I can still use it as a form of beta reads and potential critiques and feedback on a story before a deadline. It's more, if anything, it's more depending on the type of group and how it works. If it is a hard deadline we're planning to meet, then yes, then there's a larger chance that will impact my writing.
Yeah, I agree with that, and with my experience in the DC area critique group, it's been nice because there is of course, inadvertent from the group's side, level of shame with me not getting my stories in frequently. So that keeps me writing because I'm like, shit, I really got to get a story in. It's been a while since my last story went through, so I gotta like put my get to the grindstone and get a story written. So that does help me keep motivated to put stuff out because there's nothing for a story motivation that like not wanting to disappoint other people.
Yeah, never underestimate the power of someone you know saying they want to read what you do next.
Yes.
Yes.
Hey, Mark, I want to read your next story.
You want to read my novel?
I want to read a lot of things from you, so as long as it's not teabagging.
I need to write that.
No, you don't. And if you don't know what we're talking about, praise the Lord.
So I wrote this.
No. Next question, sir. We'll go quick.
Yeah,
before he
I'm
starts.
sorry, but that is outside of the scope of the panel. We will be taking questions at the end. We're just trying to get through our list of questions here. Okay, so that being said, so with all of your writing group experiences, if someone's looking for a writing group, how should they go about looking for a writing group from what your experiences have been, and what should they be looking for in a writing group?
I think it depends on where your writing is at the moment, or really where your writing community is at the moment. If you are in if you are in the Furry Writers Guild and you know a bunch of people in the guild and you're able to go out and be like, hey, you 5 people, I get beta reads from you a lot. I don't know if you know each other, but would you be interested in setting up some recurring thing for us to share stories? Then that's easy to do. If you aren't part of a community as much like that, or you're newer to the community, it gets a little bit harder. If you're newer, like there's a lot of opportunity to just put out a blind ask for people who are interested in doing that kind of thing. But that requires being part of the community. And though I can praise the FWG's community for existing all day because it's a great place to find resources and find people. If you're out on your own, you kind of have to you have to find your beta readers, and you have to. It's a lot harder to search things out. One thing that I found works for me, which was one of the first ways I got beta readers, was on like whatever sites you're posting your stories, comment on other people's stories that you read and you like, and you will get to know them, you'll get to talk to them, and you can trade betas with them eventually because writers like having comments left on their stories, just like you like having comments left on your stories, I'm sure. And it'll encourage you guys to talk, and writers are very happy to share beta trades. And once you have people sharing beta trades, it's only one step further to say, I've got 3 people who I share betas with all the time, and I think you guys would get along. Let's start a periodic writing group. It's really mostly just taking beta readers and connecting them.
So TJ explained how he came into the Cincinnati Fiction Writers and then dragged me into it. But in actuality, there's an app or a social networking site called Meetup. And the Cincinnati Fiction Writers is actually on there, and a lot of new writers come into that group and find us through Meetup. So just search your local area for writing groups. You know, search the internet. It's wonderful. You can find anything.
I mean, if I remember right, there's something like there's at least 1 in Dayton, 2 in Cincinnati, and I think 1 in Columbus, based
Yeah.
off of Meetup from where
Yep.
my location between the 2 major cities.
So that's the outgoing end of the table. If you happen to be the shy, quiet guy who likes to sit in the corner and just listen,
You get roped into shit.
the advice for getting into a writing group is when they come along and go, hey, you want to be in a writing group?
Yes.
Don't follow your first instinct and say no. Say yes and see what happens.
You can always burn that bridge later and just ignore them.
Yeah, you can always get out later if it's not working out.
Also, apply for RAR. If you've not been, apply for RAR because you will come out of there with extremely talented author friends who will be more than willing to critique and share stories, and you'll have an excellent time at the event.
All right, so with that, we will open for audience questions for the next 18 minutes. So there was a hand back there initially, so I'm happy to recognize you for your question.
Like whenever you guys look for your like writing groups, is there like a site you can go to or like a place you can go where you can start off to find a writing group?
As actually Mog mentioned before, meetup.com is where the Cincinnati Fiction Writers was localized, and their main base of operations, if you will, is. A lot of the general, the who's sharing that week and the daily calendar or the weekly calendar is all held on that site. Nice, simple, real easy to use. It has a website, a app as well. Both are great.
Furry writing in particular, as Otter mentioned, there is the Furry Writers Guild, and they do promote new authors. So going there, you're going to find a lot of experienced authors, a lot of big names, actually, that will be willing to help you get your feet wet.
Yep. And that's just Furry Writers Guild with no spaces.com.
Actually, that's how I met JD and Otter here. Originally got beta trades from them. So.
Yep, that's right. And then for what I was talking about with finding, just finding beta readers through like posting stories and reading comments, basically whatever media site, like furry or otherwise, where you find stories, just start leaving comments. Leave comments on stories you like, and talk to people who talk to the authors who respond. Don't just like jump down their throats after the first comment that you leave and be like, hey, read my story, but leave comments, and after a while broach the topic, and after a while of gathering a few beta readers and people who you will mutually beta trade with, invite them to start up a nice group. So that can be done sofurry.com, furaffinity.net, any fiction site, fan fiction, whatever. You could just literally any website with stories that has comments. Authors will love to hear what you have to say, and they will get talking and critiquing.
I can't speak for the two on the ends of the tables, but the internet story archives were how I got my start in writing.
I mean, the internet is really, really great.
AGNPH.
One other source I can suggest is you may want to see if your city or state has a writing association. Writing associations are also a good repository of information about how the state of writing within your locality. And sometimes they may also have information about writing groups or writing meetups as well, if they don't advertise via meetup.com or some other sort of public group notification site. So it may be worth to see if your state has something like that. So I know Maryland, which is where I live, there is a Maryland Writers Association, and they advertise a bunch of events on there. So if you're okay with taking your first dip in a writing group, in a public writing group, that will probably be very diverse, then that may be an option as well. Any other questions? Okay, so hopefully you all have gained some more information and understanding of what writing groups are and how they can help you as individual writers, regardless of where you find yourself. Oh, yes?
I can't necessarily find a way to put it into a question format, but I haven't really had luck getting into like beta groups or writers groups either. I do struggle with NPD, though it's controlled to my possible, how much I can take care of it, but there's a half of me that's always absolutely fearing any little bit of critique, but I would like to get that under my belt if I want to be a serious author. So I guess there's no real question to it, it's just, is there a way to kind of combat that or ease myself into that kind of life?
So, I think this is actually a good place to ask that question. I would also suggest asking the panelists, which I will be one of, at the critique panel, which I believe will be on Sunday.
Okay.
So that panel deals a lot more with critique. You can also attend, potentially you could also attend the advanced writing panel, although really critique and kind of dealing with critique was discussed in the intermediate panel, which was immediately before this one. But you could potentially attend that and see if maybe you get some strategies from that as well, or talk to the panelists after the advanced panel is over. But I mean, I think that's do we happen to have any recommendations from a writing group perspective on that?
I think, actually, I would think JD is probably best suited to.
And I
answer this one
apologize,
honestly.
just for the panelists, what is NPD, since I'm not familiar with that term?
Narcissistic personality disorder.
Okay.
Actually, I have a thing.
What are we looking at me?
No, I mean, because, you know, critique was kind of a bear for you, and so how do you ease into actually taking the critique?
You remind yourself that these people are trying to help you. They're not trying to tear you down. They're not trying to make you look bad. They are trying to help you be the best that you can be. The other thing you do is you don't respond to anything right away. You take your step back, you deal with any feelings that you might have, and then you walk away for a while, and then you come back to it. So in my write group, I just take my notes, I look at the critiques, and then I just go do something else. Write another story, play a video game, watch a movie, and then I come back to it. And by that time, it's like I've worked through everything, and it's, okay, this is supposed to help me, and that's how I look at it. So, but yeah, every time I deal with critiques, it's like, oh God. And then it's like, set it aside, and then come back to it. And that's how I personally deal with that.
I think that's good advice even for the thick-skinned among us, honestly.
And I don't think anyone's so thick-skinned that they don't have moments like that even after dealing with critique for a long time. Just recently, I came off of a string of rejections for my stories that was very hard to deal with. And then I wrote a story that was outside of my comfort zone in a genre I wasn't familiar with, and it came out complete garbage. It was difficult, and I sent that to a beta reader, one of my really close friends who I sent like all my stories to, and she was like, I think that there are some valuable things here, and I think that you could do really well in a rewrite, and that was a really, really difficult thing to hear. And it's very much what JD was talking about, where like, I find myself that I can be thick-skinned most of the time, but after like a string of rejections and stuff, you will have those bits of vulnerability no matter who you are. And no author is going to go without a string of rejections at some point in time. And you just kind of have to take a step back and figure out what you want to do about it. I mean, like, it would have been perfectly valid for me to set down that story and be like, this was an experiment, it didn't really work out, I'm going to go write the stuff that you can come and see me for at Fan Fiction After Dark. But I chose to go ahead and rewrite it, and for the next month I did super fast writing and sending it out to friends who were willing to critique on a dime and get it back to me right away so that I could just hammer this thing out. And it got in, which was super uplifting. But it was that critique there was extremely hard to handle, and you just kind of have to figure out what what your action is on it. You never want to respond like argumentatively. You never want to respond in any in any way other than like thank you for the critique or what specifically about this is it. But in that case, you just kind of have to figure out for yourself how you're going to move forward with the story and what you're going to do.
Something that I really would recommend, especially if you feel general critique is tough for you, you can't accept, or you have a harder time to accept when someone brings feedback to you about your story, ask questions instead. This way what you're doing is if you already are worried about something in a character or in a setting or in a plot point, if you're not sure how well this works for X, Y, or Z, be it whatever, the reader, the whole story as a whole, by asking a direct question, you're getting a direct answer. That might be a way, if you're asking something, that might be something that helps you let your guard down more directly to be able to receive that feedback.
Thank you.
Very well.
Something else to consider is also, and I just lost track of it now because the door opened and closed. Something else to consider too is when you're sitting in that space and you're in the middle of receiving something that is clearly causing you some level of emotional distress. I think JD covered this really well, where he said, remember that your writing group is there to support you. They're not there to tear you down. Well, they're generally not there to tear you down. They're not there to be cruel, and they are not there to be mean-spirited about anything. And this is something that we'll talk much more about in the critique panel. But from a writing group perspective, remember that these people are also making themselves vulnerable to you. So one of the things that you have to do as a participant in a writing group is you should also communicate things that may cause you problems. So for example, if you communicate with your writing group and are just open about the fact that, hey, I just want to be upfront with the fact that, et cetera, just that you cover your bases and you give the other people in your group who, especially if you're coming to a new group, who don't know you and who don't necessarily understand, communicating that up front and expressing that vulnerability and being willing to trust them, that's a big step. But it's also something that makes them aware of, hey, this person is trying to reach out to us. We really need to try and help them. So that may be something also, is just be communicative, be upfront about what your expectations are. If you have limitations on yourself or that that you have, express those up front. Just be honest and sincere when you're stepping into a writing group space, because, like I said, everybody's there for a particular reason, and those reasons all center around improving writing, and being your own advocate in a group setting is really important, because that can also encourage other people to advocate for themselves and also to express themselves and be open. Okay.
Thank you, I really appreciate all the advice.
So, yes.
How do you get in zone?
That I think is more of a general writing question, not necessarily writing group specific, unless you have some extra context for that.
Yeah, like, when you're in a group setting, how do you get yourself, kind of comfortable and able to, concentrate in that area aspect? Like, when you have so many ideas going through your head, how can you, specifically just concentrate on, maybe just a couple of those ideas instead of, all these things? It's like, when you're in a group setting, you get really creative, and then you have all these creativities going through. How would you be able to, maybe calm those down?
Well, I'll tell you what I do, because my mind is always running, and when I mention synergy, sometimes that happens with me. I remember a couple ACs ago, a bunch of us were together in the lobby of the Omni, and we were all doing a writing meet, and while I was sitting there writing, I just kept getting idea after idea while I'm trying to focus on one story. So what I do is I always have something available, like an idea pops into my head, I write it down. And when I write it down, that kind of pushes it to the side enough that I can shift my focus back to what I need to focus on. And that way it's there so I can revisit it later.
My magical secret is always rainymood.com, which plays rain sounds. It's very nice.
See, my big thing is it all depends on what the atmosphere of your environment is and what the group's goal is at that time. There have been times when me and Mog are sitting down. I mean, technically that is a writing group. We're sitting down to do work. That's our goal. That's just a matter of me just extracting myself from that situation and focusing on the work. But when I think writing groups, my mind immediately goes to critiques in and of themselves. And it depends on how your writing group does the critique. If I know my local in-person group will read 10 pages aloud at a time. That's a matter of you have your notes in front, you have the work in front of you, you're making notes on that, and that's a way for me to focus on it. I can focus on what's in front of me and the words that are in front of me and the comments I want to make and the grammar, like what is this grammar here? Why that's the wrong your, that's the wrong to, and you can just make those notes and keep moving. That way, when the critique session starts, you have that 20 minutes where, as a group, you're taking turns making comments. Sometimes they're good notes, sometimes they're opportunities that you saw, and someone in the group may refute you and say, "No, that's not what I saw by that. I saw something else in this scene." It really just depends on what the group is and what their goal is and what's going on at the time.
All right, so we are actually close to out of time, so we'll go ahead and end there. So hopefully you all have learned something either from what we've presented or from the questions that others have asked about writing groups. Hopefully you have some idea of how they can help you as a writer develop, and how in turn you can help other writers develop and build a sense of community with the writing groups that you participate in and or build for yourself. So one of the questions obviously is, how did you find your writing group? And one of the answers is, look at all the other people in this room. These are all other people who are potentially some people that you could get into a writing group with. Writing groups don't have to just be in person. As has been discussed on the panel, plenty of us are in writing groups that have electronic components to them as well. So the DMV for a writing group has an electronic component in addition to we meet up and we deliver critique face-to-face where we can.
Electronic honor.
Yeah, well, and yeah, other honors usually, or significant honor is usually,
There's a first honor. It's
yeah,
disappointing.
there's a first honor. And significant honor is
It's less
usually
significant in this
electronic
situation.
via video space, for example, so that's how we include him.
I'm relegated to other honor.
Only because there was another otter who I call Otter before you.
That's just it.
I can
Yes.
call you second Otter, I suppose, instead.
I don't mind.
But thank you very much for coming to the panel. Please give a round of applause for our panelists. You did a wonderful job of answering the questions. Thank you very much, and I hope you all have a lovely rest of the day and enjoy Anthrocon. Go to the dealer.